Hey cool people, thanks so much for joining us today. Very excited as always. Today we have Harry with us. Harry's from Lyre Lyre Studios and is a grad from 2017 where he was studying game design, and then following that he didn't have enough of us just yet and decided to join us for the graduate diploma in management course. But no one wants to hear me say all the cool stuff. Harry will take it away in just a tick. If you have any questions and want to hear more, or maybe there's something that we're not asking but you're super interested in hearing about, make sure you pop a comment in the chat below and we'll try answering it on stream. But with that, I'll hand it over to Selena.
All right, I'll take it over from there, Craig. So hi, Harry. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For everyone in the audience, would you like to just introduce yourself, what you're working on now and what you do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Harry. I am the team lead at Lyre Lyre Studios. So primarily I'm a designer by trade, but I also took on a number of other roles because as a small studio, you have to pick up some extra duties. So I am primarily the producer. I also do all of the audio, business management, social medias, marketing, and anything else that really needs doing.
Cool. So let's talk about your game. So I've played it myself. I loved it. But what is it about? What is Human Simulator?
Okay, so Human Simulator is, well, on face value, it's about Mr. Human. So Mr. Human is an alien, and he loves humans, and he really wants to be human, but of course he's not. So, well, what's the next best thing? Build yourself a robotic body and try and fit into human society. So it's a silly, wacky, funny little game where you basically have to manually move his body parts and help him get through a whole series of different jobs and learn what it's like to be human without getting caught along the way. There are a few deeper elements to the game, though, for those who care to look. There's sort of some social commentary about what does it mean to fit in, what does it mean to be human, imposter syndrome, and basically just, the concepts of being a little bit nervous about how you're perceived by other people, which is something that I certainly am. Is possibly something that I think about maybe a bit too much, but certainly for Hugh, it's on his mind and he needs your help. So that's sort of where we went with it.
Yeah, we always love a funny game that might be a meme at face value, but really you add a lot of social commentary in there. It really gets you thinking about what it means to be a human. What was the inspiration behind the game? What gave you the original idea that you wanted to develop this game?
So the original idea from this came from really a pretty innocuous source. I happened to be sitting next to a friend of mine during my advanced diploma. We had a small little assignment that we needed to complete, and at one point, my friend Brad was messing around. He's now gone on to be a programmer at PlaySide, I think. He happened to be sitting next to me and had this quirky little kind of situation where he thought maybe you should do an interview simulation. And between the two of us, I gave him some advice on some of the mechanics to try. And it never really got off the ground, but I kept it in the back of my head as a nice little idea. And then a couple of years later, we decided to run with the concept of what is a spring joint, which is what's attached to Hugh's head and makes his head kind of bobble around a little bit, and try and turn it into a proper game called Human Simulator. We took the game to a little game jam, spent 3 days making a very early prototype version of the interview level, and got some really positive feedback from it. So we took it back in, tried to turn it into a full product, and now we're here with a full release, which we're really excited about.
Super exciting to have a initial concept go into a full-fledged game. And speaking of the game being received very well, your game was picked up by so many popular streamers and YouTubers everywhere. So what were your initial reaction? What was the team's reaction to the game just essentially going viral?
I mean, as you probably can imagine, for a lot of these guys, these content creators are people we've been watching for more than 10 years in some cases. Certainly for me, I've been aware of Jack and Drae and CaptainSauce and Kevin for a long time. They've all been people who I've watched hours and hours of their footage, and then you always imagine, wouldn't it be great to have your game played by them, but to see them actually pick it up and also to have a pretty positive reception, because you're never sure how it's going to be received. They might absolutely hate it, but turns out that they kind of liked it. And that was we were over the moon when we saw that. And every day new ones would roll in. Sometimes you'd find we had some real success with international audiences as well, which we weren't really anticipating. But some of our best performers actually have been social media people from Germany, from France, from, you know, all these different countries. And that's one of the things that prompted us to go and get translations happening. So that's coming up soon. Hopefully we've got our German and French translation releases. But yeah, it was quite overwhelming to see all these people that we kind of knew and always hoped, but that sort of that voice in the back of your head tells you, oh, it's probably pretty unlikely. And turns out we were able to get them. So that was just absolutely stoked the whole team.
That's so awesome. I played the game, I think, back when you guys had your first build. You guys went to PAX, and I thought it was super funny and cool. And I think my reaction at first when I saw all of pretty much my entire subscription feed on YouTube being filled with your game, that was super. It was just super inspiring for me. But in your opinion, what do you think the reason was for your game's success, and what did you think you maybe could have done better?
It's kind of difficult to really pin down what makes a game successful, but I think a few of the things that we had going for us was comedy is always really well received, and wacky physics-based comedy is well, maybe it's in a little bit of a low right now, but I mean, there have been some really big successes. So that in and of itself is enough to at least kind of raise people's eyebrows. And what we did differently with Human Simulator was try and create a narrative, like a story. You have this main character, Hugh, who you are helping out, and there's progress, and he improves, and he lives, and he learns, and he loves, and all that kind of stuff, which has kind of been a little bit absent from some other physics-based comedy simulators. So I think that definitely helped us. And having a ridiculous wacky head gimmick that spins around all 360 degrees is one thing, but the key really is to try and add enough game around that to make it more than just the gimmick and hold people's attention and say, oh, okay, there's actually more of a game here than I realized. And at the moment, I think we've been able to just do that, but we're hoping to maybe do some DLC coming up soon, and that will really help add to the game. And just I guess bring it to life. It's a lovable concept, but the key then is to take it and make it something a bit bigger, a bit more. And hopefully that gives it the staying power with people.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the technical side of things, especially for people interested in game engines out there. What is the engine that you guys use for this game, and why did you choose it?
So the engine is Unity, and we used a lot of the standard programs, Photoshop, Blender, all the rest of it, that you would probably be experiencing as students. For most of the people watching, I guess now, or who watch the video, they'll probably be students who are going to end up using more or less the same types of programs and software that we ended up using. I wish I had a better reason as to why we used Unity. I don't. We used Unity because that's what we learned during our time at AIE in our courses. There wasn't really a point in time where we sat down and said, let's look at the technical comparison between Unity and Unreal or any other engine for that matter. We knew Unity, and we knew a lot of the other programs like Blender and Photoshop and all the rest. So we just ran with those. They are industry competitive, they're industry standard, and they're wonderful. In fact, some of the best games in our genre were made in Unity. Surgeon Sim was made in Unity. So it's a great engine, but there wasn't really a point in time where we said, oh, we're going to use it for X, Y, and Z reason, other than that's kind of what we learned. So, may as well stick with that rather than try something a little bit too risky and learning a new engine.
Yeah, and the game ended up being super successful. So you guys definitely made the right choice.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, and well, did you want to just describe your role in the game? So you mentioned you're currently team lead at Lyre Lyre Studios, but for Human Simulator, when you guys first made it, I believe you were the key designer and also the producer of the game. So what was your job like?
So my job has evolved enormously since the early days of the game. Obviously, when the game's in its early stages, you can do a little bit more to do with your area of discipline. So I was primarily a designer, and that was great. That was wonderful, don't get me wrong. But as the whole process of building a business around the game to kind of go hand in hand with it evolved, there was a requirement to take on more things. So initially I did the designing, the narrative, the player experience, the player interface. I handled a lot of the stuff to do with getting the actual stuff going in Unity, getting handling the engine side of things. And that then became manage a team in terms of the production side. Another element is the audio. So that's one thing that I feel is a little bit missing at the moment with some of the educational stuff that we did. Was one element that kind of isn't part of AIE's course structure, or at least wasn't when we were going through, was the audio side of it. And so we suddenly kind of got to the stage where we thought, oh gosh, we need to do proper audio and proper music, and well, none of us knew how to do it. So I picked up Audition and a few other things, and then I learned how to make sound effects, I learned how to make music, I learned how to do audio editing. So that's another thing. And then after that, we kind of had a game, but we needed the business around it. So I started to take on managing the financials, managing the businesses, the business kind of components, like making contacts with our fans, watching our content, getting in touch with translators, making sure we're registered as a business. So the problem, I guess, was you always start out as you're learning your discipline, but as things evolve, if any of you are looking to start up your own kind of studio, there's a lot of extra things you're probably not going to immediately have all the answers or experiences with. So just be ready for that. It's a lot of additional hoops to jump through before you actually get to the stage of release. We got there, but I can tell you it was a real struggle, and I learned a huge amount along the way. It's never easy, but it's definitely worth it if you're really dedicated and committed.
Cool. So would you say that was the hardest part about making this game come to life, or were there other like little obstacles in the way that you felt like what like almost deterred you from releasing the actual game?
Yeah, there are a lot of obstacles. There's always a million obstacles, but they really start to mount as you get closer and closer to being, the real deal, where you're actually going to release. From a technical side of things, we encountered some issues that were really hard and some issues that weren't. For anyone who has played the game, there's the window in the nuclear level that is a custom shader, and we had a whole time getting that working. So that was really difficult on it from a technical perspective. But then from a big picture perspective, I think the thing that we struggled with the most, and that most studios, startups, people who are kind of like trying it for the first time do struggle with, is getting the scope right and getting the timings right, and inevitably encountering things that you hadn't anticipated that blow your schedule a little bit out of proportion, makes it further and further away. So that whole kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, you're desperate to cross the finish line, but there's just one more thing. Oh, I forgot about that, didn't realize that. So the main thing for us, I think, was keeping the team together and getting across the line. And that went really well in the end. But there was a lot of times where we said, okay, so this is going to take 3 months. Oh, no, it's going to take 6 months. Oh, no, it's going to take. And that process can be quite mentally challenging because you feel like you're sort of spinning your wheels a little bit. You're always making progress, but actually crossing that finish line kind of starts to become the only thing that matters. And it can be a negative headspace to get into. So we were really lucky to be able to have the opportunity to make this game, and I think we all really enjoyed it. But there was a big sigh of relief when the actual release came to say, oh, thank goodness, we actually got what we needed to do all out of the way, and that hopefully will help us in the future to get our other products out a bit quicker, because once you've done it the first time, it's not so bad from there on.
Super good that you persevered till the end, and now you've made it. Must be super satisfying, and as you said, like a big sigh of relief that it's all done. Yeah. So you created this game as a part of your major project in your graduate diploma of management learning. It's a mouthful, GDML for short. Did you want to tell everyone like what the course was about and what your experiences in the course?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not entirely sure what's happening with the GDML at the moment, but when we went through, it was designed as a program to run for 2 years. So it ran for 1 year as an educational component where you got your diploma, and then following that, you had the opportunity to persevere as an incubator team. So basically, AIE would give you some office space and some equipment if you needed it. And we were really lucky that we were able to go to PAX in association with AIE. So they provided essentially mates rates of a sort to a lot of the critical components to starting up a studio that most people who are just coming out of their university degrees probably aren't very kind of aware of. So that was really important for us. It taught us how to run a business, and that was definitely valuable. But a couple of us had some business experience previously, so we at least had a bit of a vision of where we were trying to go with that on that front. But just purely to be able to sit together as a team and hold meetings, look over each other's shoulders, say, I need this done, to have that personal kind of working space, to make the effort to go in every day, to not have to spy, to drop $10,000 on equipment and to pay thousands of dollars each month on utilities and rent and whatever it might be. That really was the kind of the thing that allowed us to pursue this. After the GDML, we actually pursued another course, which was Nice. It was great. I'm not sure I'd recommend it. I think that there's a lot of finer points and details you'd want to look into before you jump onto that, but that helped us to get a bit of financing to continue. But it's been very tough making sure we have enough money to get across the line. And without the GDML and the incubator space, I think that probably wouldn't have happened. So we're really grateful that was there, and it's wonderful. And we're hoping that we can continue to basically have that as our office space if and when things go back to normal. But for now, it's the study. And we'll see how it goes from there.
I'm super glad to hear that the GDML course was very helpful. And for the audience, it's definitely still running, even with the current isolation situation. So you can always apply for it via our website. So Harry, how did you find out about AIE? You mentioned you did 2 years here. How did you first hear it?
So as with, I guess, probably half the people going through AIE, they tend to have some previous experience or education, and then maybe half out of school. I was definitely the former. So I went to Melbourne Uni and I studied science. I got a master's degree there in 2014 or so, and then worked in the industry for a few years. And then just coincidentally happened to be in a share house with a friend of mine who said, I'm doing the art course at AIE. And I said, oh, that's really cool. I've always wanted to work in games. And he said, well, that's something that I'm doing. You're welcome to have a look. And basically I just decided at that point in time, look, opportunities like that don't come along that often, and if you're going to pull the trigger, circumstances are going to work against you the longer you leave it. So I decided to take the risk, take the gamble, and get involved and give it a try. And it panned out wonderfully. I mean, I'm living my dream right now. That doesn't mean it's all fun. It's all obviously work fun, but it's something that never would have happened if that random chance encounter hadn't occurred. But I've enjoyed it immensely. It's been a massive transition from something very different, science, to game design and development, but that's always been my real dream and passion. So yeah, I'm just wonderfully excited to be able to be involved in it. And it all started by going to in a chance encounter, really.
That's awesome. So what did you, what made you initially want to become a games developer? You did a science degree before, so did you always you always kind of know what you wanted to do, or did you kind of change your mind halfway and just decided to, as you said, pull the trigger?
Did I always know I wanted to be a game designer? Yes. Did I always know it was an even viable option or the right choice or the responsible choice? Definitely not. I did science because I love science, don't get me wrong, but it was also a real job, and my parents felt that was possibly something that would have value, which it certainly did. I'm not saying it didn't, but the idea of working in games has always been sort of, I guess, held as not a real job and that sort of thing. This actually, the footage that may be on screen right now is showing a prototype we worked on when I was a student. I showed this to my father, and this was the moment that the light switched on in his head, where he stopped thinking of games as if they were games and started thinking of them as if they were really quite serious things. And so for me, I always knew I wanted to, but I never really thought the opportunity would come along. So when it did, I'm not sure what it was that made me want to actually say, okay, yes, pull the trigger and go for it. But I'm really glad that I did, because this is definitely something that's always been on my mind. I grew up in an isolated area. I'm an only child. So when I was young, games were a really important thing for me. They were a portal to the rest of the world, an opportunity to escape and to see things to create wonder and magic. And I really wanted at that point in time to be able to say, maybe in the future I can do that for other people. So yeah, hopefully at least someone gets a smile out of Human Simulator and any other games that come out of us, and that's enough. But I'm having a lot of fun along the way, at least.
That's awesome. Do you have any, particular games that particularly inspired you to go into this industry? Maybe some shout outs to some inspiration?
Well, I mean, the ones that really attracted me to the industry are your really famous ones. Your Elder Scrolls. I started with Morrowind because I'm an old fart, and even earlier games than that. And the Halo series and Crash Bandicoot and all those really early games, Spyro, with the PS1. That's kind of where I started. Then coming into Human Simulator, obviously the more direct references such as Octodad and Surgeon Simulator, but comedy simulators are wonderful. They're great fun. I'm not sure they're my favorite game of all time, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think I'm more of an RPG sort of person. But every game has value or can have value, and it's up to you to bring whatever you have at the moment, whatever you think has got legs and it could be really impressive, to life and make it that full thing, to take it beyond that starting idea, even if it's just a scribble on a page or a fully working prototype. It's a big step to then go still to the full release, but it's something that is tremendously rewarding if you can get there. And I think back to the early days, how much harder it was then than it is now, and it's astounding. But that's where I started, and the first thing that drew me into the whole idea of development. So yeah, I was very lucky.
That's so cool. So what is in the future of Human Simulator and Lyre Lyre Studios? Are you guys working on some secret, exciting new content that we could buy off the shelf the moment it comes out?
Yes, we are. So at the moment, we have just completed our playability update. So that's just tweaking the game in its current stage and making sure that it's the best it can be. And we're hoping to also, not hoping, we have got several translations. So we've got our French translation, our German translation, our Portuguese translation, and some other translations that we're going to then push in a language pack to hopefully open the door to a few more people around the world. And then work starts on DLC. So we've got the Weekend Work DLC in the pipeline at the moment. We're not exactly sure how big that's going to be or what the timeline is going to be for it, but we're hoping it'll be something along the lines of an extra 4 levels. And that will bring a bit more substance to the game, give you a few more fun sort of situations to get involved in with Hugh. And if that goes well, then we do have some, I won't say super secret, but you just might end up saving the world sort of thing down the future. As for, I guess, what happens beyond that, well, we'll have to wait and see. But please, if anyone looks at this and thinks that they like the idea on it, please go and buy it. Every sale helps us get a little bit closer to making those DLCs. And even though it's a silly, wacky sort of game, on a personal level, there is actually a really big, deep, expansive story that we want to bring to life. And we're just crossing our fingers that we can hopefully get there.
Awesome. I can't wait to get the new DLC for myself so I can try it out and see what it's like to be human.
Good.
Are you guys planning on any other games? Feel free to not tell me if it's top secret information.
No, that's okay.
But any future plans outside of this game?
So basically, it depends on how Human Simulator continues to go, of course. But we've got, I think the last time I counted, my super secret book has about 16 prototypes drawn out. Now, which one of those actually goes ahead, we're not 100% sure. But probably the most likely will be, we actually want to do a revamp of that one that was on the screen a little bit ago, which is that VR horror game. So for anybody who happens to be a bit of a VR horror fan, you will be seeing something here that may be reminiscent of the games Alone or Boogeyman or a few different games like that. This is Grim VR, which is actually the game that brought us together as a team, as our first team project back in 2017, I guess it is. And we want to revamp that and turn that into a full game again, because it was a really exciting kind of opportunity for us, and we had people falling off their chairs and getting a lot of jump scares, so that's always really, really rewarding to see that your work is going well. And I personally am not a horror buff, so I have to do all the testing on this and sit in the horror thing. And even when I know the scares are coming, they still kind of, kind of get you. But I'd be really, really keen to make this. So maybe if things go well, in 6 to 12 months, people might be able to get their hands on Grim VR or whatever it might be called at that point in time. But scary, but also exciting. This was one of my favorites. I'm very attached to this prototype.
Yeah, I can see you in the video trying the game out. Is that you with the VR headset in the video
Yes, it is.
trying it out?
So what you're seeing here is so that's the very early stages of development for the game. The full screen version is a mid stage, and then there is the final prototype. So it got quite a lot nicer than that, turned into a full product. You can play the whole thing through, but probably not a professional release. So we want to go back to it and grab it again and say, let's make this a professional release. So that right there was about halfway through development. So we took it quite a bit further than that. And it ended up being really very exciting. I like it a lot. Maybe someday I'll be able to at least post a demo, but hopefully the full game. I've currently got my artist working on a new monster for it. So it's still in development. Keep your eyes peeled.
Oh, we're super excited to see this secret footage of your secret game in your secret book. Before we wrap up, Craig, do we have any questions in the live chat from the audience?
None just yet. Jess Holland, who's from the Melbourne campus, wanted to say a quick hi. I'd be super interested to know, I don't know if this is a short question, but when you were prototyping the game, what kind of things were you looking for in that prototype that would allow you to know that it was going to be something that would be successful or something that you'd want to work more on?
In the VR title?
Sorry, in the Human Simulator prototype.
Oh, Human Simulator. Okay. So in Human Simulator, when we did a little game jam, which was just a prototype of the interview level for those who have played. And what we were really looking for was, so the game begins looking like everything is fine, and then the instant the player interacts with the controls, the head goes nuts. Typically, if you get a laugh out of people at that point, you're on the right track. So that's always good. The design behind the mechanics is deliberately frustrating, not too much so that people rage quit, although I'm sure some people do. But it was always designed to be a significant challenge, but not too much so that it drives people away. And I think if you look back at other games in the genre that have been successful, it's the same idea. Surgeon Simulator is notoriously finicky, but it's not impossible. And once you get the hang of it, it's quite a lot of fun trying to use a deliberately broken system to do something, even relatively simple. You get a big sense of achievement. So for us, it was the same. We wanted to see people pick up that mechanics set and get a big laugh out of initially, and then say, okay, well, is there more to this? And then find, well, there was more to it. And we happened to be successful with that. There's no guarantees, it didn't have to work, but I think that in the end, with the addition, especially now, of Hugh's hands and Hugh's legs, and we're trying to work in a few more specific mechanics in our upcoming DLC, it breathes life to a gimmick. And we saw that initially in the prototype, but now we're seeing it much more with some of our favorite streamers picking it up. It's gone very well, which is really exciting.
Nice.
Awesome. So finally, for those aspiring game developers looking to make their big debut in the gaming industry, what advice do you have?
So, I mean, the advice here is that you can make it and you can do it, but just to bring it back to be a little bit more real for a second, make sure you don't go in with your eyes shut to a lot of the details behind what it actually takes to release a game, because I find that by today's standards, I probably do design work 20 to 30% of my time. There are a lot of other components that you probably won't immediately be up to speed on when it comes to releasing a product, starting a business, getting it out in front of people, having it reviewed. All of these things are things that probably don't get taught, at least in the regular advanced dip. The GDML covers some of them, which is great, so that's definitely worth looking at. But there are going to be many different things that you have not experienced. Don't be afraid of them, just be aware of them. That would be my advice. If you're dedicated and committed and passionate, that will get you through these things. So make sure that you, of course, have those things. You must be committed and dedicated and take it really seriously. But there are going to be walls, and you can get over them. They may seem insurmountable to begin with, but it just takes a bit of time and commitment and dedication to get over those things. And I can tell you that it's worth it. Absolutely it is. But if you think I'm just an artist, or I'm just a programmer, or I'm just a designer, then probably starting your own studio is going to throw you a few curveballs that you might not be super ready for. So, and just be aware of those things as hurdles to overcome.
Awesome. Well, if anyone wants some help in starting your own studio, we always have our GDML and incubator courses designed to teach you how to make your own studio and how to learn more the complex management side of things. So I have one final question for you, Harry. Are you having fun?
I am currently basically living my dream, so of course I am having fun. Yes, it's work fun. It's not fun. Maybe when we sell 1 million copies, it suddenly becomes pure fun. But right now, it's a mix of work and fun. But that doesn't mean it's not rewarding or satisfying or anything like that. I'm really blessed to be able to do what I wanted to do all my life, and I hope it continues and we have some success, that allows that to continue into the future. But I am definitely having fun, even if I get a bit grouchy sometimes during development. But yeah, it's a good time.
That's super awesome. So Craig, before we wrap up, did you just want to show everyone what's happening next week in our live streams?
Gonna make sure you're not gonna like tonight's session. You're gonna make sure you don't want to miss this. We have Annabelle McFarlane, who's a grad working at the Amazing Mighty Kingdom in Adelaide as a technical artist. Some really fantastic looking work there. So if you want to join us for that, that'll be on July 9th, 6 till 6:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. But if you also wanted to go hands-on with some of the tools that were talked about today, make sure you come along to the Industry Experience Day. That'll be on the 15th of July at the Sydney, Canberra and Adelaide campuses. And Melbourne's got a special event on the 7th, but we'll be looking at doing that in a way that means you might not have to leave home, but you'll still be able to go hands-on and look at using the tools, because honestly, going hands-on with the tools is super important, so you can be like, this thing I really like, but that I'm not so sure about just yet. So yeah, the Industry Experience Day will be a great chance for that. But because spots are limited, you're going to make sure you want to head to your favorite website, which is aie.edu.au, and make sure you register for that.
Awesome. So thank you so much again, Harry, for joining us. Everyone who's watching today, make sure you hop onto Steam and buy Human Simulator and tell them all your wonderful feedback. You could be even a part of the process in helping develop the game. And he did say there's a lot of cool DLC coming out, so don't miss out. Otherwise, yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you have more exciting games.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.